Good morning. This meeting of the Baltimore City Council Health, Environment, and Technology Committee is now called to order. I am Danielle McCray, representing the Second District and Chair of the committee. In chambers, we have Councilman Mark Conway from the Fourth District. We have Councilwoman Felicia Porter from the 10th District, Councilman James Torrance from the 7th District,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
and Councilman Isaac Yitzi Schleifer from the 5th District. Also in attendance from the mayor's office, we have Sophia Gebron-Hewitt. And also in attendance, we have Matthew Peters, who is staff to the committee. Before we get started, I'm just going to ask everyone to take a moment to turn off or silence their cell phones. Also, if you have joined us in the council chamber and you would like to testify, there is a sign-in sheet outside the door. Please sign in and check the box to indicate if you wish to testify. Today, the committee is hearing Resolution 22-0108R, investigative hearing Druid Lake and Ashburton water tanks for the purpose of inviting representatives from the Department of Recreation and Parks and the Department of Public Works to provide information on the Druid Lake and Ashburton water tank projects, including a general overview highlighting the importance of the projects and updated timeline for the completion of the projects, a summary of the environmental implications of the projects, and any corrective actions taken on environmental issues reported to the Maryland Department of the Environment, an assessment of the scope of the projects and whether they are on track to stay within the allotted budget, a detailed description of the proposed park amenities and restoration, a discussion of BCRP's plan to maintain Drew Lake Park during the ongoing construction work, and an assessment of how these projects align with equitable neighborhood development for the surrounding communities. We're going to start with brief opening remarks from the resolution sponsor. Then we're going to hear from agency representatives, and after that, committee members will have an opportunity to ask questions. After that, the public will have a chance to testify on the resolution. Any public testimony will be limited to 3 minutes. I do want to start by thanking Councilman Torrance for bringing forth this resolution to provide our residents and the surrounding communities, along with the general public, updates on the Ashburton and Druid Lake water tank projects. And I do look forward to hearing updates from the respective agencies on the importance of these projects, the current timeline, and what our city can expect out of the completed resolution. I am going to recognize Councilman Torrance at this time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the agencies and the public, especially the communities that surround the actual tank projects. And I say the tank projects because this is a $270 million investment into the city of Baltimore's water infrastructure, but also it is an investment into amenities that are surrounded by historically Black and red-line communities. This is an opportunity to bring economic development as well as equity to both those neighborhoods surrounding it, but also highlight the gems that we have in our neighborhoods. For instance, Druid Hill Park is the second largest municipal park in the country. It used to be a plantation. It is an opportunity to support the communities around it, whether Black, white, or any other race, in terms of bringing people to Baltimore but celebrating it. Every year we have festivals, we have parties, we have cookouts, and everything in these beautiful gyms. These are gyms that our neighborhoods depend on, that are amenities that add to the value of those communities. And I look forward to hearing about where we are in terms of the $270 million that we were given by the federal government and how we are addressing not only our water infrastructure, but the beautification of these gyms. Case in point, I'm thankful to our state delegation as well as the mayor's office working with us to get $17 million for the Druid Park Visioning Plan. $17 million towards the $50 million price tag that we need to do to revitalize that park even further. I'm thankful to the opportunities that our residents had in providing input into what the amenities will look like after the parks are updated. But one of the things that we do struggle with, and especially in the Hanlon Park area, is the soil that we had issues with, but also the trees that were taken away, as well as in Druid Hill Park. So while we have those challenges, we have an opportunity to use this as a catalyst for economic development in West Baltimore. So I look forward to the agency's updates, but also happy to see that these projects are on budget or either under budget right now, moving forward in completion in the next year. So this is a good management of public funds. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to hear from our agencies and our city solicitor's office. Ms. Ruley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hillary Ruley for the Law Department. This resolution is approved for form and legal sufficiency.
Thank you. And we're going to have presentations from both the Department of Public Works, also the Department of Recreation and Parks. The order that we're going to go in is that the Department of Public Works will be providing a presentation on Druid Lake, and then Rex and Parks is going to follow with their presentation on Druid Lake as well, and then DPW will follow with an additional presentation for Ashburton. We're going to pause at the end of each presentation for committee members to ask questions, and Department of Public Works, you would be able to start at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair. Marcia Collins with the Department of Public Works. We have with us here today Mr. Tim Wolf, who is the Chief of the Office of Engineering and Construction, and also Mr. Charles Oliver, who is the project manager for these two projects. And of course, we, in addition to myself, we have Janelle Mummy in our Office of Legislative Affairs. And having said all that, I'm going to turn it over to Tim Wolf.
Okay. Good morning, Madam Chair McRae and committee. My name again is Tim Wolf. I'm the Chief of the Office of Engineering and Construction in Department of Public Works, Bureau of Water and Wastewater. I appreciate the opportunity to present today the status of this project and the investments the city's making in these large projects. So I'm going to go ahead and start. We're going to, as we said, we'll start with Druid Lake. Let's see here. Whoops. I don't know if it's... Okay, thank you. Just going to go over some statistics on the project to date. As you can see up here, the project started in the spring of 2017. We've used a little over 2,000 calendar days year to date. Again, the budget, quite an investment of $134 million. We are still under budget on the project and expect to be so. About 93% of the work is done. And we expect the project to complete in January of 2024. So as you can see, there's about 7% remaining on the budget. Fair amount of work to do, but again, that's the plan. Next, please. Okay, as far as the ongoing work, again, the major investment is obviously the two tanks. The tanks themselves are done, and we're actually backfilling. You can see there's two large tanks that were installed in a portion of the footprint of Druid Lake. That's one's 30 million gallon tank, and another one is 16 million gallon tank. And what I wanted to emphasize is these are major investments, and it improves the water quality of the water in the city of Baltimore, because we're covering the reservoirs and also provides better turnover. So again, enhancing and increasing the level of protection of the water quality itself. So big investment. It is going to be a big benefit for all the citizens in Baltimore and the surrounding area. Some of the work left on the tanks are some access vaults and structures as well, and that work's about 20% done. Next, please. Some ongoing work. Again, there's still some pipe work that's going on, which is about 85% done. That work, there's about 6,000 feet of pipeline work, and we're well ahead on that work as well. As you recall, recently we ran into some rock issues and we presented a blasting plan and it was rolled out to the community, and that went well, successful, and we're moving ahead with the pipeline construction. That blasting actually saved us probably a year of time because of the hard rock we encountered. Next. And for this picture, you can see on the right, that area right there is what we're referring to as alignment A, is where we hit the hard rock. It was about 400 linear feet that we had to work with on the rock, and the blasting was contained to that area, and there was really no impacts resulting from the blasting itself. The work involves, installing the large pipeline. You got to weld the pipe together, a steel pipe, and then also some additional auxiliary pipes and maintaining erosion sediment control as well for compliance. Next. So some of the upcoming work at the project, we still have some electrical work to do, instrumentation and control to control levels in the tank and the system, interact with all our pumping stations and our treatment plants. We continually test pipe once it's installed to make sure the integrity of the pipe is sound. There's going to be an aeration system installed in the lake itself. Then there'll be tie-ins. We'll reestablish the Jones Fall Trail, and then the restoration and full opening of the Druid Park Lake Drive is estimated the end of this year, December, and we're coordinating with DOT to coordinate that reopening. Okay, and just wanted to mention briefly, the city's always investing in infrastructure based on a lot of parameters. We look at condition criticality, equity, and we try to spread investments throughout the city of Baltimore. And what I wanted to just mention, some of the investments in this area of the city around Ashburton, there's a couple projects that are ongoing. There's one over, it's 1257 water main replacement project just across 83 to the east. It's basically a water main replacement, started in April, expected to finish in September of 24. And then the Vernon Pump Station, which is just actually on the east side of 83. It's not, we basically finishing up design. It's planned for construction in the near future. So just wanted to mention the other investments in our infrastructure and specifically in this area. And then again, as mentioned earlier, the councilman mentioned about investment in this particular park. It's a large park, a lot of activities, and there's a lot of amenities that are going to follow on this park. As you can see here, it's a long list, and I have some slides to show what's proposed, but we're actually reestablish the shoreline for, present the aesthetics of the lake. There's going to be, open welcoming area. Actually, the covered tanks will add 14 acres of open space for the park. And new site lighting, paths around the park for pedestrians and cyclists. Widen some of the Druid Park Lake Drive. There will be a podium for a future band shell by coordinating with Baltimore, with Rec and Parks. And we've been coordinating with Rec and Parks continuously, actually even through construction, as far as some stormwater features and things of that nature. Again, we'll maintain, the lake will be maintained, the water level, basically with stormwater and supplemental water supply to maintain the level of the lake. We're going to preserve the trees and monuments as well. Next, please. So, again, I just wanted to give a bit of an overview. This is what the finished product's going to look like. You can see here that the tanks will be covered, and there'll be open space for activities, and be utilized for multiple events. Next. Again, a little closer shot to give you a sense of the magnitude of the open space, and then you can see some of the paths around to the right. There'll be more of an entrance on the left side of the park. Next, please. And again, this is the park entrance area to kind of give a gateway into the park and some memorialized with stone walls, sidewalks, paths, and lighting. Next. And again, coordination, with Rec and Parks and the vision for the park. So again, we're constantly coordinating and making sure that we're working with Rec and Parks on, key features, be it the pavilion, amphitheater, trails. As I mentioned before, we're coordinating right now for some stormwater that the Rec and Parks is proposing on their next phase. Our work is not impacting the existing park. And like I said, we're coordinating with Rec and Park facilities. Next. I just wanted to touch briefly on some, environmental concerns that we had. We came across during the construction of the project. Initially, back in 2017, as you're aware, the tanks are actually sitting in a portion of the footprint of the lake, so we had to isolate that portion. Initially, when the contractor started, they put in a turbidity curtain in 2017, and then they would build a cofferdam to separate the active potable water lake from the area where the tanks were to go. There were some significant efforts to, actually maintain the proper construction with turbidity curtain. We had some issues with that. We worked with MDE, and there was multiple attempts to try to get the turbidity curtain up to standard to meet water quality for the water system, and that was not successful. So basically what we did is we took the lake offline, drained it, installed the cofferdam, and then we were able to continue on with the construction. We continuously coordinated with MDE to ensure we're in compliance with water quality regulations. And as far as water quality testing in the lake, the contractor actually, they were testing daily chlorine, turbidity, temperature, pH, and weekly E. coli. So we're ensuring the water quality of the lake is maintained for the citizens of Baltimore. Next. And again, just to kind of step back a little bit, this project's been long in the planning stages, as far back as 2014. We actually coordinated, obviously with agencies in the city and the community. We held numerous public meetings with the community, presented our plans at various phases of the project, 60, 100%, to ensure that we're coordinating as far as proposed improvements for parks, improvements, different amenities as well, and coordinating as well with Rec and Parks throughout the project. And during construction, we hold quarterly meetings with the community to give them updates on where we are on the project. There was a bit of an interruption during COVID. We did have a couple periods where there wasn't some of the community meetings, but generally speaking, we have those every quarter to update the community as well. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rec and Park so they can present. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Committee. My name is Adam Borman. I am the Chief of Capital Development for Baltimore City Recreation and Parks. I'm a licensed landscape architect, and I like to say I'm the official hype man for this project. The Druid Lake Vision Plan was something that we began in the year 2020. We finally published our report in November of 2021. I have it here in front of me. This is a 115-page document that covers a lot of material. So to get to that point, we had to first step back and look at the history. Druid Hill Park is the third oldest park in our nation. And that was something that, I don't think any of us should take lightly at the importance and the significance of this property. The history within the city comes from the the terminology of the druids and the trees in the park. We saw in the early 40s and 50s, a lot of use from the surrounding neighborhoods and communities that were primarily African American and Jewish neighborhoods. Then in the 1960s, we saw these neighborhoods unjustly cut off from the park with the Jones Falls Expressway and Druid Park Lake Drive. These are some issues that we really see important in tackling and addressing. Looking at a greater context of our project, of course, this is building upon the DPW tank project, which I think he showed at $134 million. We envision the lake project, the recreational lake opportunity, in the $50 to $60 million range, and then opportunities to address those issues with Druid Park Lake Drive on top of that. In terms of working with our colleagues, I think this project, more than any other one that I've been involved with, has really broken down the silos. Working closely with both DPW, DOT, and the Department of Planning, we've really come together to create a lot of energy, not only around this project, but others in the vicinity. Of course, we have great kind of proximity to the West Impact Investment Area and all the other development that's happening in this region, so that our project can potentially be a really transformative effort that can build upon all those efforts and make a really successful project. So as part of this effort, we've really been thoughtful in our engagement. We've had 3 community engagement meetings hosted virtually. We had 1 in person. We've had numerous interagency and director level meetings, meeting with the state as well. Through all this, we've engaged with over 600 residents, not only directly around the park, but throughout the city. We see this as not only a local, but also a regional destination. Of course, people come here not only to bike and walk around the park, but to use various amenities, to attend concerts and different things that are held throughout the year. So to get to this point, we had 4 design principles. The first was go big. This is a tremendous opportunity. This was a lake that was previously kind of inaccessible. It was fenced off. It was in all relative nature, it was a sterile bathtub of sorts. So this is our opportunity to get people down into the water, create new recreational opportunities, and actually develop ecology and biology where it didn't exist before. So that through that, we've had a lot of community engagement, as I mentioned. We're looking at ways to address the ecology, and then last but not least, address some of those racial injustices that were part of the Druid Lake Park Drive and the JFX that cut off our surrounding neighbors. So here's a quick shot at the vision plan. This is still a work in progress. We're currently in our schematic design phase. We're continuing to roll. We intend to come back to the community sometime in early 2023 and show our progress. By this point, we've taken this vision, and now we're getting into the nitty-gritty engineering of it to see what our limitations are, what can and cannot be done with regards to the dam, how we make sure that we respect the work that DPW has done while building upon our opportunities to get people down to the lake and all around it. So I'll give you a couple shots. This is a picture today looking northwest. And then this corner is where we envision an opportunity for a boathouse and a cafe overlooking the water. We can potentially have some islands and a pedestrian bridge and really get people not only in, around, but over top the water and experiencing the lake in ways that they previously did not have access to. There's another shot at that potential boathouse. Again, this is very conceptual and it'll be fleshed out going forward. But I mentioned the idea of a cafe. Maybe it's an opportunity for vendor stalls similar to place where you can, local businesses can come in and set up shop and serve the people. We don't really have this in our parks at this point, but this is an opportunity to get people to come to the park and spend an entire day there. Another existing view. And again, you can see the boat launch here, getting people down to the water. This will be an early phase plan of ours is really creating that access. This is a proposed outdoor education building. I've mentioned the kind of ecological component of this project, and we feel this is an opportunity to bring not only recreation kids, campers, but also school children alike, and get them to engage with the environment and learn about the park that they are enjoying. And of course, there was mention of the 14 acres on top of the existing tanks. We're looking at opportunities for an amphitheater, different ideas as to small events and large events. In reality, we can support AFRAM here. We can hold over 100,000 people on these tanks. A little bit of the history. Before the lake was formed, it was a stream corridor, basically a tributary of the Jones Falls. It was then later dammed. You can see the watershed here. This is something that we are looking into now as to tapping into it so that we can sustain the water level that is required by the dam engineers, and then also bring carbon and different biology down into the lake so that it is a living and breathing thing. This is a kind of a look at that. This is daylighting some of those streams that come down from the zoo, from the boat lake they have there. So this is something that would bring that existing biology to our lake and serve as an interesting component. A couple other items here. We look at potential for floating wetlands and living shorelines. Here's a little screenshot of what that could be. The possibilities are endless, and for me, I did not originally think of this project as an environmental justice kind of thing, but it's really an opportunity to create life in many ways, and it's something that is very exciting for all of us, and certainly for the engineers. So understanding that it is going to take time. It does not happen overnight. So as time goes on, as we slowly introduce new species, the flora and fauna will find itself and become its own habitat. I touched on the travesty, if you will, that is the Druid Lake Park Drive. You see this historical document here, this photo showing 19 different pedestrian connections into the park along the southern edge. We currently have 4. That's an issue that we need to address as something that we've been talking very closely with our colleagues at DOT. We see this as an opportunity to take this high-speed thoroughfare and restore it as a parkway. 1 lane each direction, pedestrian walks on all sides, hierarchy of paths for both slower moving folks and people on bicycles. Another look at the currently existing project, and then what it could be, or what it will be. We're going to have to do this in phases. I've mentioned it's proposed to cost somewhere around $50 to $60 million. First and foremost, we need to address the circulation. We need to get people back moving in and around the lake. Beyond that, there's a lot more environmental opportunities, creating these islands and these bridges, and of course the boathouse. I'm optimistic that we may be able to combine phase 1 and 2 based on funding. We currently have $17 million. If we're able to get in the $30 to $40 million range, then we could probably achieve both phase 1 and 2. And then ultimately the build out of the surrounding areas, the environmental classroom and other amenities on all edges of the lake. So here's a quick breakdown of what those dollars may look like. Of course, these are 2021 dollars, which are continuing to inflate, if you will. But we have had tremendous support, both at the local level, Councilman Torrance, and at the state level, especially with Senator Hayes. I mentioned we got $17 million from session last year. We've made a request to double that this upcoming session. And I know Councilman Torrance has greater ambition beyond that. So I'm feeling pretty positive and optimistic of where the capital is going. And I think that this may come to life. Looking around us, we need to be cognizant of our surrounding neighborhood. There are some vacancies, there's some open lots. There are some residents that we need to make sure that we don't displace through our efforts here. So this is a transformative project. It's an opportunity for development, but we can't forget about the folks that we're trying to serve locally. This quick slide kind of shows our process, the vision plan, working with the community. Now we're into the capital phase, looking at the build out. But ultimately, we need to think about operations and programming and the governance model of this. I mean, this is a huge project. It's not something currently in our budget. This is something where we really need to work with council to make sure that beyond the capital, we are successful in keeping this looking beautiful and offering programs and amenities to folks for many years to come. So again, I showed this. We're all working together very closely within the agencies, but there's also outreach to both the state, private levels, and even at the federal level, there are opportunities. This is where we're talking closely with our colleagues at DOT about infrastructure opportunities. I believe they intend to apply for a federal grant relative to Druid Lake Park Drive in the next year or two. That's something I continue to advocate for. We feel that our project is really only a true success if we break down those barriers and allow people to get into the park. I mentioned kind of funding and governance. Our consultants are currently looking into this. The traditional city-funded and city-operated approach may or may not work here. We know this is going to be a cost. How do we generate revenue? How do we support the efforts? Do we need partners? Do we need a conservancy of types? These are all things that we're exploring. Of course, we don't want to give away any of our assets, but we need to be realistic about what the city can support with its current budget. And that's all I have. Again, as a landscape architect, this is like the opportunity of a lifetime. This is a career project, one that I'm very proud of and just excited to get going. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Borman, and thank you, Mr. Wolf. We're going to pause for questions on the Druid Lake project. I'm going to start with DPW. Mr. Wolf, you did, you briefly talked about how the tanks are going to advance water quality, and the primary goals, obviously, of both projects is to ensure our drinking water is safe and that it's secure, while also ensuring that we're complying with federal Safe Drinking Water Act regulations. For the general public, can you elaborate on details on how these projects will actually improve and preserve our water quality.
Yes, thank you for the question. Basically, the improvement level is, first of all, covering the finished water supply. So it's in a covered tank, so protection from any environmental impacts. So that's key number one. And basically, the volume has been reduced from the lake, so better turnover, addressing water age, so maintaining better quality, and the residual of chlorine in the system. So those things are really the driver for improving water quality.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. For Recs and Parks, I love the concepts that were provided, and I know that you guys worked with, Unknown Studio on the concepts for these items. I want to talk about the start timeline. Obviously, it would be close to when DPW is finished, and their timeline is saying that they're 93% finished with their items. Do you guys have confidence still within a spring 2024 start date that was previously mentioned?
I'd like to believe that we will be under construction in the year 2024. There is a lot of work to be done. You have the Army Corps of Engineer, you have dam safety, you have a lot of regulatory bodies that we have to work with here, DPW, stormwater management. But we're making progress. We have the funding. We're in design right now. We're continuing to collaborate with our colleagues at DPW to see if there can be any efficiencies as they kind of close out their project and roll into ours. Can we, can we use some of their byproducts from the Coffer Dam, or can we hold off on doing some stormwater management ponds so that we don't basically undo something that was just done? So we're trying to be cognizant of both saving time and money there. But yes, we are on track and working towards a 2024 start date.
Within the presentation, I didn't see any established timelines. Are there established timelines for when you start in 2024 for the project? Are there items that you're able to outline at this time?
Not at this time, only because we're still kind of feeling out what the phasing will look like. It all really comes down to funding. We feel very confident that the $17 million we have now can get us off to a good start. We can build a great phase one. But if we go into session in a couple months and we come out with double that, then all of a sudden our scope of work increases. So I should have a better feel for that as we get out of the session and get into kind of finalizing budgets early in the spring.
Okay. I look forward to once we have some more concrete timelines. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to move to Councilman Torrance.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I was sitting here, it's like, thank you for taking my questions. So, to Rec and Parks, this is an opportunity to undo a lot of things that we've seen at the park, but also create an economic catalyst. In the current phasing, since the chair took my other questions, have we looked at things that generate revenue within the park? So once we establish them, what items that we have on this phasing that will generate revenue to help us maintain the nice things that we're getting?
That's a tremendous question, and I think there will be more opportunities. I mentioned different sized events, concerts, festivals, et cetera, that you can permit. The opportunity, if we build this cafe, to have vendors leasing spaces from us there, boat rentals, programming, different activities that can be, even if it's a small monetary exchange, there's opportunities for us to generate revenue there. One thing I neglected to mention is, my dream is to have a triathlon here. Let's have people swimming and running and biking in and around Druid Hill Park. You know, we can start having those kind of things. Of course, we just had the Baltimore Marathon. It's always a huge success. Let's build upon that. Let's get into, you know, the opportunities that athletics allow for sports tourism and just generating revenue.
Thank you, Adam. My next question is more geared towards one of the things that I just want to make sure the public hears again from you, because this is the biggest question as we finish in 2024. Can we host AFRAM at the front of the park with our new gates is the question. That has always been the question for surrounding communities. And I just want to make sure we confirm that for the communities today in public again.
Yeah, so we have studies in the vision plan that shows the opportunities for events as large as AFRAM, 100,000 people, multiple stages. I mean, it'll work. Basically, whether or not it's hosted there in the year 2024 or beyond is all a matter of the phasing and when this project comes online. There will be some disturbance. I mean, this is another big project. There are growing pains with that. I mean, I know we've all kind of been enduring the current tanks project, but I'd like to think that the product will be worth that kind of sacrifice. So that's something we can work with you and administration on, is how we plan and phase those things and make sure that we are careful when considering traditional events such as AFRAM.
Thank you, Adam. And I have a question for DPW, if you allow me, Madam Chair. DPW, can you clarify what do we mean by restoration of Druid Park Lake Drive? I just want to make sure the public understands what restoration means.
Yeah, I mean, well, we could provide some maybe plans to show you in detail, but it's, you know, it's going to be restored. I think they're talking about an additional lane. I mean, you know, Charles could maybe add to that if you'd like, but I know there is plans. We could provide you more plans. Charles, do you have something you can add?
We're in the process of preparing. Good morning.
Who are you?
To open it up so that all of the travel lanes will be returned and the walking paths, so that the community will be able to move back and forth. That's what we mean by restoring.
Here's a follow-up to that $1 million question, Charles.
I'm sorry, sir, can you state your first and last name and the agency you're representing for the record, please?
Yes, ma'am. Charles Oliver, the Office of Engineering and Construction. I'm the project manager on these two projects.
Thank you, Mr. Oliver. Thank you, Madam Chair. I was about to remind him of that. My next question is just clarifying, because this is $1 million question throughout the entire corridor. Are we repaving the sections that we have disturbed? I just want to make sure we're making that clear.
Yes.
That in December, we're repaving the sections that we disturbed, so.
Yes.
Sure. With that, I yield, Madam Chair, for the next round.
Okay, Councilman Conway?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, this is exciting. This is super exciting. I love just like seeing where we're trying to go with the park. I think it presents a real opportunity, I think, for the city to show what we're doing with our open space, making it dynamic, making it accessible. So I'm really, really encouraged about how we're thinking about this. Madam Chair stole my first question. I think everyone's asking the question about the timeline. And then you touched on it. I kind of want to clarify it, though, by way of what funding we already have out of the estimated $50 million and how we're thinking about the remaining portions of that. Of course, this is all great. We got to figure out how to pay for it. What do we have and what's in the pipeline?
So current funding to date is roughly $800,000 from local funds that we've primarily been using for the vision plan and then upcoming schematic design. And then beyond that, we received $17 million from state legislation last year. Based on Rec and Park's current budget, this project really exceeds anything that we can try and carry through the CIP. So that's why we need to be creative. We need to lean on the state. We need to work with potential partners at the private level and think outside of our traditional funding. I mentioned the infrastructural dollars that are available at the federal level. I think there are opportunities to kind of combine forces with DOT and not only make improvements to the roadway, but to our internal pedestrian circulation within the park, in and around the lakes. I think a lot of that could potentially qualify for that funding as well. But again, when I'm receiving $7 to $10 million in city bonds on a year-to basis, I mean, I'd have to shelve every other project we're working on and work on this for multiple years. So I think we're fortunate that the state has a certain surplus, and I've seen to have gotten the ear of Senator Hayes and some other folks. We're trying to spread the word. We're speaking with our federal delegates as well. But we need to look outside the traditional methods to not only pay for the capital funding, but I think also the long-term maintenance and operations.
I appreciate that. Thank you. The other major consideration that kind of got my brain running was the impact to the surrounding community. You talked a little bit about displacement. I think we need to really dig into that, because I do truly believe that once we have this kind of park, not only there, but also truly accessible by foot, by bike and otherwise, you're going to see significant real estate activity in the surrounding neighborhood, which should be very, very good. I think we need to be thoughtful about how it's going to impact folks in the communities today. But I think that's going to hopefully be a major tax revenue for the city in thinking about how these improvements can, of course, fill the city's coffers over time. But if you care to elaborate at all about how we're thinking about the displacement issue, how we're thinking about the long-term planning of the surrounding community, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, so it's a separate project, but in this area is the Parkview Recreation Center that we're currently designing for now. We attended a community meeting very early on to tell folks of our plans to demolish the school and rec center and build this beautiful park with a new rec center. And it was at that meeting that I heard a concern like, I live here, I'm not sure I want this if it's going to impact my taxes. And that kind of blew me away. And so when I see projects of not only that scale, but ones of this one, or the Reimagine Middle Branch project all along the Middle Branch waterfront, like, we really got to be cognizant of improvement without displacement. Gentrification is a real thing. This is a conversation I've been having with Director Ryan and Department of Planning. Like, how can we protect the very people that we're trying to serve? Of course, we want to bring in more people. We want development. Let's tax those folks. But the ones that have been there, that have maintained their homes throughout the years and generation to generation, those are the ones we need to find a way to protect. But having said that, my office is across the road from the lake here. I drive up and down that road all the time. Seeing vacant houses and vacant lots all adjacent to a park of this nature, it's mind-blowing. So I know there's some energy happening now. There's a proposed new high-rise on one of the parcels, but there's still opportunities to really transform this whole area.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll wait for the next round.
Thank you. We're going to go to Councilman Torrance, and then we're going to go to the Ashburton presentation, and we'll have questions again after the Ashburton presentation is made.
Just for my colleagues' purview, right now we're working with Parkview Recreation Center. That is a combination of 5 agencies where we're doing a housing strategy where we are going to stabilize the homes around the new recreation center, which is around $12 million, right, Adam? Yes. $12 million, and then the vacant structures surrounding it will be renovated and then for sale for home ownership. And then we're coupling that with a neighborhood stabilization strategy in Archentrolli Terrace. So we're purposely and deliberately doing things in the corridor that allows for economic development but doesn't displace residents. For instance, one of the things that are being added into this project is Cloverdale Recreation Center, one that has been a staple for young black men and women in this city in terms of basketball and youth development. So I've asked that and fighting for add that into this project, got commitments for CIP in FY 25 and 26 to get it there, because recognizing that as we do the park, we have to start doing economic development things in these actual black neighborhoods that surround it. So with my partners from the different agencies, our state delegation, our federal delegation, we're being very deliberate in how we do the investments around these neighborhoods, make sure that we don't displace residents. So thank you for that question, and we'll have a follow-up to hearing for that as well.
Thank you, Councilman Torrance. We're going to go to the Ashburton presentation. We're going to have questions regarding that, and we're going to circle back for any other questions that we have for both projects afterwards. Thank you.
Again, good morning, Madam Chair McRae and committee. Appreciate the opportunity to present on the Ashburton project. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to try, see if I can make it work this time. I'm not sure it's, you had the touch, I don't know what, is it? Great, so it should work, okay. Okay, great, thank you. Again, to start off, you can see this project started in the spring of 2018. We're about 1,600 calendar days into the project. The budget's almost 137 million, big investment for the city. Right now, we're under budget and looks good. We're gonna stay on budget for the project. Approximately 84% of the work is complete, and this project's projected to be completed in October of 2023. I got it, okay. Whoops, I see what you're saying. I can't go too fast. Apologize. So as you can see, the ongoing work at the park is the tank excavation obviously is done. The tanks are actually pretty much 95% built. There's 2 25 million gallon tanks that are going to be installed in this location and buried underground as well. And again, I wanted to emphasize the improved level of protection and water quality with these type of facilities, basically enclosing the water with covered tanks ensures better water quality, and also the size of the tanks ensures less age of the water. So good turnover, so improved water quality as well. So some of the ongoing work is, I am so sorry. This is, maybe you should run it. I apologize. Some of the ongoing work, and I know it's a little bit hard to see here. Great, thank you, appreciate it. Some of the pipeline work, we have some major pipeline connection work going on, 60-inch, 66-inch pipelines, that's undergoing. as well. There's a distribution building which actually distributes the water into the tank in the system. It's under construction. That's on the east side of the eastern tank. You can see architecturally it's kind of mimicking the environment. It's about 65% complete. Next. Again, here's a better shot of the distribution building. It's going up. Actually, during all the construction, maintain the sediment erosion control. And there's a lot of pieces that go into these type of projects, commissioning, and as well the startup. So all that's ongoing. In this picture here, you can see this was actually about a month ago. So definitely moving along with the work. Next. Again, I wanted to just emphasize the investment into the city of Baltimore across the city. As we, evaluate and improve our assets, there's multiple factors that are going into replacing, upgrading, and improving our infrastructure. We look at condition and criticality, equity. All these things are put into the picture as far as selecting projects. And some of the projects that are in this area, as you can see here, there's a little bit to the south, there's a large water main project that's ongoing down on Elamont and Springway that just started in June, and the completion's May of 25. A large interceptor sewer project that was part of a consent decree. It was kind of an early start for a phase 2, a large project that went right through the area, right kind of through the east of the tank site. That actually started in 2019, and we just completed a substantial completion. The project is actually flowing, and we're just doing cleanup and punch list items, so hopefully get out of there pretty soon. Then some upcoming projects. The Ashburton Washwater Lake is going to be dredged, and we're projecting in 2023. That's a lake that's just east of the tanks, and they take basically backwater from the water filtration process, and it has to be dredged every so many years to ensure we have the volume as well. And then once this tank project's done, we're going to move forward with the Ashburton Pump Station Improvement Projects, which is located at the site. It's pretty much complete design, but there's a little coordination with the final construction of the tank project to this project. Next. And again, just to get into specifics a little bit, as I mentioned, the tanks themselves, they're up. You can see they're basically concrete reinforced tanks. And then these tanks are actually wrapped with wire to improve the structural integrity of the tank. So that's going on right now. And then there's still some large diameter pipe installation that's remaining. Not too much, but a little bit. Next. So again, some upcoming work for the tanks themselves. So, obviously doing leak detection and ensure the integrity of the tank construction, the pipes as well. And then we have some instrumentation and control. We are going to make some mods and install basically line stop in the water line to provide isolation for future baseball fields there for water. And then there's tie-ins as well, and ongoing other installations. So basically, a lot of the heavy work is done. It's more of the site work, pipeline work, and some instrumentation and controls. Next. And then I wanted to kind of move towards the park features. Again, work closely with the community, and realizing that it was a park amenity. There's a lot of features are going to go in after the project's completed as far as amenities for the park area. There's entrances, walkways, fields, picnic areas, comfort stations, fitness centers, and overlook amphitheaters. So, and then also forest planting, ornamental grass. So I wanted to go through a couple of slides that show you what we're proposing. Next. Again, here's a basic overview of the park. As you can see, the tanks, the big green open space area, And then surrounding, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, but to the north and east, we have some forest planting areas, and as well as on the western side. And the northwest corner is the main entrance to the park, and then we're going to also, towards the southeastern portion, tennis court and a basketball court. Next, please. Again, like I said, on the northwestern quarter, this is kind of the gateway, the entrance to the park. As you can see here, will be a memorialized entrance for pedestrians. Next. And then, like I said, playgrounds, equipment for, playground activities and pavilions as well. Next. And again, right up against the lake, there'll be basically a sitting area and like ornamental grass, walking paths as well. So again, to accommodate the residents in the area as well as the community as far as park amenities. Next. And again, the community involvement with actually the playground and fitness equipment. We have sent a color selection to the community and have requested some feedback. We're hoping to get some feedback from the community over the next couple of weeks with color selection so we can move forward with procuring the equipment and stay on schedule. So that should be, we can follow up if necessary, but that's been submitted to the community. And as well, the community has been invited to basically a site visit, and we look to hear from you so we can walk the site and show you what's going on at the project as well. Next. I wanted to talk about a little bit about the environmental impacts we had in the area. As you know, the hexavalent chromium was discovered during excavation for this large project, quite a bit of excavation to install the tanks. Basically, once it was identified that the chromium was present, the project was stopped for a period of time. You can see 57 days, and we took samples and basically worked with MBDE and the regulators and basically looked at the MDE standards of 23 parts per million. And the MDE standards are actually 10 times more stringent than EPA's. And basically, what it is, it's really, MDE allows 1/10 of basically allowable risk to exposure of this type of element, chromium. So we actually took the more stringent standards and complied with those. Basically, what we ended up doing is having the contractor dispose of all soils on site that was actually over 9.5 parts per million. So all that material was taken off site, and it was disposed of off site and purchased by numerous companies and not brought back on the site. You could see them there. So again, DPW worked closely to ensure that that was handled in the way that we felt it was best for the community and in a successful project. And as well as we also do continually monitor dust control on site to ensure there's no high levels of dust, and that's monitored regularly as well. Next. As far as community meetings, again, as this project was in the planning stages, we had multiple community meetings to obtain their input and feedback on the proposed project, the plan, the park amenities, as well. As you can see here, we had multiple meetings throughout the design, 30, 60, 90% design phases. And then we also had a community meeting as well in 2018. And then during construction, we had regularly quarterly community meetings that we held to present the status of the project and address any concerns or questions that the community may have as the construction was going on. And as I do show up here, there was a bit of an interruption with COVID. It's kind of slowed down, but we worked around that. A lot of the meetings went virtual. We maintained a virtual meeting to ensure that we could reach the residents in the area. So with that, I think that's it. I don't think there's any more slides. Okay. Well, thank you very much. That gives an overall presentation of the project, where we are, and thank you.
Okay, we're going to go back into questions specifically about Ashburton, and also then just some general questions about both projects that we still need to address. The first thing that I want to talk about is the park. And right now, we're at a time within our city where we are addressing ADA compliance concerns and constantly speaking about ensuring equitable access to multiple spaces, including green spaces. So my question is, have plans been presented to the community about a more accessible playground? The concepts are great. This looks like an updated traditional playground, but I want to know, have plans been presented about a more accessible playground that offers a range of play experiences for children of various abilities?
I mean, I don't know about it, that range. I know we always are complying with ADA compliance for access to the different areas, be it handicap ramps, slope of paths for wheelchairs and things of that nature. Those are always built into our projects. As far as, facilities for, handicapped access, if you're talking about equipment specific, I'm not sure we've gone through all the selection of the equipment yet. Charles, I know we've been working with our vendors as to consider that, and we can make sure we accommodate that concern that you raise if there is equipment that would be accessible for, handicapped children or adults, they can get into the area to ensure that access is for them as well.
Thank you, and I just want to make sure going forward, all of our agencies are just being mindful of every user that's using our facilities. So hopefully we can take a look at the equipment and make sure that there are additional offers. So again, all children of various abilities would be able to utilize that park. Councilman Torrance.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to start with questions about the environmental things and then come over to Rec and Parks after that. Question, are we still testing for hexavariant chromium? Apologies.
Well, at this point, I don't think we're testing because all the soil's been removed. We're not removing any more soil off the site, so no more testing. Since we're not digging, removing soil, we're actually at the point of, backfilling, and any material that, like I had mentioned, that was at 9.5 parts per billion was removed from the site. So the only testing, we're doing dust control testing around the site, but not chromium specific.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure because I do know that we did sell the soil to various vendors so that the public knows that we actually use this as an opportunity to remove the soil completely.
Yes.
Confirm that.
Yes.
In addition to that, the question I now have is for the water infrastructure surrounding the project. We now have the new sewer system that was installed. What is the timeline for updating water mains nearby in the adjacent neighborhoods? Because I know once we do the tie-offs and we're starting to connect this new system, I know we've been doing a number of water main repairs and replacements in the area. I just want to make sure the public, can you confirm that that is occurring? Apologies.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we'll build that. We always look at that in our model as far as our 15-mile water main replacement program does have an equity lens when we look at prioritizing projects. And like I mentioned, the one, I know it's a little south of Ashburton, I think Elamont and Springway, but again, we look at our 15-mile program from condition criticality, and we have an equity lens to ensure that these projects are distributed throughout the city, with our replacement program.
And then here's a joint question for both you and Rec and Parks. We removed over 200 trees from the park. What is our plan for replacing said trees? Since we removed such mature trees?
Yeah, I mean, there is the presentation, we're actually doing forest planning on the north side, the east side, and the west side of the park. So there is going to be planting of additional a lot of trees in the area. So we're going to reestablish. It will take a little time, but again, we're cognizant of, replacing trees and giving a forested buffer of the area.
Thank you. And also, can you confirm that we are replacing the number of trees as well in the surrounding neighborhoods as well? Can you confirm that we're also using opportunities in the surrounding neighborhoods to replace the trees that we lost at the park?
Like I said, our replacement program for the trees, we work with forestry on replacing the number of trees that we take down. So there's a calculation on if we take down so many, we have to put up so many more. So we ensure that we ensure that we have a forested area that was more or equal to what was there.
Thank you. For Rec and Parks, once we do have once DPW turns the park over to you, the questions I have are about maintenance and also phasing in additional amenities into the park. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, there have been community requests for amenities beyond what is currently proposed. We've met with the community a few times. Those discussions, I would say, are ongoing. We've currently allocated $300,000 in the CIP for potential relocation of the former pavilion. I've heard that there's different opinions on that, so this is something that we need to continue to work with him on, determine what are the desires post-construction of the current project. I personally would like to see kind of how things work out once the project is completed, see how the park is being used, what is needed or what could be done differently. But we will continue to have those conversations in terms of a capital improvement project. As far as maintenance goes, I'm not the best to speak to that, but this would fall under our purview to handle the park area, and it would be part of our existing regular mowing program and all our standard maintenance operations to date. I do know there is some significant planting associated with some of the stormwater management plans, et cetera, et cetera. So that's something that will require some additional care and oversight. But otherwise, these are traditional park elements, everything that we're familiar with and that we can manage.
Thank you. I yield back, Madam Chair.
Councilman Conway?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is back to Druid Hill Park. In thinking about the access piece, of course, Druid Hill is not in my district, so I'm thinking about how I'd want to get to the park. And I'm really curious what our thoughts have been around pedestrian and biking opportunities to get into the park, and of course, public transportation, but I want to start first with pedestrian and biking trails into the park.
So we're very fortunate in that the Jones Falls Trail currently goes through the park, leading from Point South, heading up north towards Mount Washington. So that is still a strong element. It's still in very good condition, something we continue to keep up on. I believe that there are opportunities with Druid Lake Park Drive to either formalize what is currently known as the Big Jump, which is the water-filled barrier demarcation of a multimodal trail of sorts. Those are the kind of things where I think, again, working with DOT and really giving that road a diet of sorts and looking at more of a complete streets approach so that people can not only get across it, but also travel along it to get from points east and west. My office, we have representatives that attend the Mayor's Bicycle Advisory Committee. We're on various working groups looking at the Greenway Trail Network. There's lots of talks about how to create a stronger connection, across from east to west across the city, and then further beyond and down through Gwynns Falls Parkway over to Hamlin. I know there is some different opinions on how that needs to happen. I know there's some community folks that are concerned about it, but that is something that's being looked at by a number of agencies and a lot of people. But in short, I think we need to continue to improve upon our access there. Beyond just multimodal access, there's a lack of public transit getting to the park. Frankly, I could say that about all our parks. The fact that there isn't a bus stop in front of each and every rec center is a problem for me and something that we need to address. But I do feel strongly that if we do not continue to look at ways of getting people to the park without using a car, we are going to have some issues, because everything we're proposing, we just finished Druid Hill Aquatic Center. That's bringing people. There's already a number of amenities there that people are flocking to the park. And right now there is no parking lot. We had proposed a parking lot with the aquatic center. That had tremendous backlash, so that was scrapped. So it's very clear to us that there is opposition to a traditional parking lot and bringing more cars to the park. So if it's going to be that way, then we need to look at public transportation. We need to look at potential shuttles from other areas, and we need to be creative. So that's something that I would love to work closer with the council on, and use your influence to work both with the MTA and our partners as the ways of getting people to the park.
I appreciate that, and I think every single one of us would be eager to find ways to provide public transportation, pedestrian and biking transportation as hopefully frequently used options to access the park. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Did you have any?
I'm good, Madam Chair.
Okay. So we are going to move on to public testimony. Members of the public, you will have 3 minutes each to provide your testimony. As a reminder, if you are in the council chamber and you would like to testify, please sign in and check the appropriate box on the sign-in sheet just outside the door. If you have joined us through WebEx and you would like to testify, please use the raised hand function to let us know. If your testimony extends over 3 minutes, you will be gently, I'll just gently let you know to conclude at the end of 3 minutes. And if you feel that you have more to state, please submit written testimony for the additional items that you need to add. At this time, we're going to start with members of the public who have signed up within the chambers. And we have Ms. Shael Seltzer. When you come to the mic, please state your first and last name, and if you're representing an organization prior to speaking. And again, you will have 3 minutes.
Yes, I'm with Record Parks.
Here's my testimony. I sent it to Odette Rama so that I don't want to bring so much paper anymore. Okay. So you can get a copy through her. Okay. So when does my time start?
Now.
Okay. I live half a block from Druid Hill Park. I live in Liberty Square. From the first time I was moving in, I saw a snakeskin. There are a tremendous amount
Ma'am,
of
just
animals.
for the record, can you state your first and last name?
Shael
please?
Seltzer.
Thank you.
I live in Liberty Square. And I soon recognized that there's tons of plants that birds and wind bring seeds. And it's a very unique place to live. We have woodpeckers, hummingbirds, raccoons, squirrels, foxes, red-tailed hawks, many varieties of spiders, crickets, butterflies, myriad of other insects, squirrels galore, just to name a few. I've seen rusty patch bumblebees, and I've seen monarchs. Rusty patch bumblebees have been on endangered species list for about 5 years, and the monarch butterfly was in decline and is now considered an endangered species throughout the world. So this is supposed to be some kind of Druid Hill tourist attraction. Get more people. The amount of people is fine, because you have to notice that there's a zoo. And zoos are quickly becoming animal sanctuaries throughout the world. You cannot build when there's endangered species on the premises and the property. You cannot touch. I support the Ashburton project, but I firmly oppose and call to abort the Doomboggle that you're proposing, a bridge to nowhere, which is essentially a rod for the urban island heat effect, which when concrete and metal and asphalt, etc., at night, during the day, it takes up all the heat from the sun, and at night, it purges it. And it does it over and over and over again. And what will happen is the lake will evaporate. You know what's going on in Colorado River,
And
but
Ms.
you're making it on
Ms.
purpose.
Also, your 3 minutes have concluded. Do you mind wrapping up at this time? Thank you.
I propose a animal sanctuary. I propose keeping the current amenities. There's already a brand new swimming pool. People do not need to be swimming in the Druid Hill Park. It needs to be for the animals. And I submit my proposal, and I just want to read where are your priorities? Baltimore is already experiencing climatic and meteorological shift towards winters and springs with more extreme
And Ms.
precipitation
Seltzer,
events.
thank you. We
I
are
just want
grateful for your
contrasted
testimony.
with, you need to save Baltimore. We have asthmatic. We can't do this. You have to eat your peas and carrots before you get the dessert. This is dessert. This is not where
Thank you, Ms.
PDW needs to
Seltzer.
be focusing their energy. They need to save Baltimore so that we can have parks, so
We are going to go
can be
into
outside.
recess at this time so we can reset. We'll be coming back in a few minutes. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much to members of the public and chamber. We are grateful for your testimony. We are going to check to see if we have any members of the public on WebEx who would like to testify at this time. And we do have a few folks at this time. We are going to unmute you. You will have 3 minutes for testimony. Once you are unmuted, please state your first and your last name, and if you are with an organization, please provide that information as well. We are going to start with Graham Coral Allen.
I'm Corral Allen. and I am a resident of the 3200 block of Auchentrelli Terrace, where I also serve as the president of the New Auchentrelli Terrace Association. One of the biggest challenges that we face is with respect to the pedestrian and bicycle connectivities, both getting to and within the park. Specifically right now with the tanks construction closing off the lake loop, there was years ago implemented, I guess you could call it an alternative path of sorts along East Drive where people were at one point through very limited signage, perhaps directed to walk along what was a parking lane. Cones were set out, the cones were knocked down, taken away. There's still some leftover signs attached to trees, but right now, people who are walking, jogging, wheelchair riding, et cetera, through the park have to take their lives into their own hands as they travel alongside cars that are also competing for that parking lane along East Drive. So there's no protected pedestrian path along East Drive on the north side of the lake. So I just want to point that out. Within our world-class park, for 4 years, we've been living with a very dangerous pedestrian situation. We really need some type of barriers and ramps built over the bulb outs so that people who are trying to get from one side of the park to the other can do so successfully on foot without having to dodge parked cars or speeding cars, et cetera. The other issue is a longstanding one, and that deals with Druid Park Lake Drive and Auchentrelli Terrace being roaring highways. And I know that this is specifically about DPW's work, but DOT has really left us in a lurch when it comes to pedestrian safety along Auchentrelli Terrace. In particular, Gwynns Falls Parkway and Auchentrelli Terrace intersection is having wrecks all the time. It's damaging people's cars. So our car drivers are losing the value of their property. But more dire is the state of pedestrians who are trying to walk from the neighborhood into the park and being attacked by cars who are show no regard for pedestrian life. We have a pedestrian button that's been broken for 2 years, and DOT is very aware of this, as is our councilman, and yet nothing has happened. And in fact, yesterday I went back out there and I discovered that one of the 8 pedestrian heads, the little signals, is now completely gone. So in fact, the infrastructure is getting worse over time. That is the experience we're seeing. Nothing is getting better. So we really implore DPW to work with Rec and Parks on providing a protected path along East Drive, and DOT to actually just live up to the basic standards of human decency and install some features so that we can have a 30-second pedestrian lead time so that all cars are stopped and people can actually cross the street without potentially getting killed. Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to move on to Jed Weeks.
Weeks. I am the Land Use Committee Chair in Remington. I'm also with Bikemore. Graham really took my comment away around the lack of pedestrian access to the park right now. Like, you literally can't legally cross into the park as a pedestrian because the signals that enable you to cross do not work, and that needs to be fixed. So I'll sort of move on from there, but I did have 2 questions that I hope could be answered that I'm just curious about. One, with the repaving of Druid Park Lake Drive, I was wondering if they're planning to reinstall the small concrete median that goes between the 2 travel lanes. So not the big jump, but the little median between the travel lanes. If it's not reinstalled, it could greatly benefit emergency vehicle access because it would allow crossover traffic in emergencies or during crashes. So like right now, if that median is present, an ambulance can't drive into the other lane to go around traffic. But if that median was gone in the repave, it could. So I'm hopeful that will be considered. And then I had a question about Ashburton. Given the 21st Century Park survey results showing recreational walking loops are the greatest desire of Northwest residents, as well as all residents across the city, and they are also the most utilized facilities across all of our parks. Why was a wide walking loop not included in the Ashburton design like we have with tremendous success at Druid Hill Park and Lake Montebello? Thank you.
Thank you. Before we close out public testimony, if you are on WebEx and you would like to testify, please utilize the raise hand function. Okay, and that is going to conclude public testimony at this time. I do want to thank everyone for joining us today. The committee will likely reconvene at a later date to continue the discussion about these projects, and this hearing is now in recess. Have a great day, everyone.